Good afternoon. I know it's been a few days, but I've had a few other things on my mind. And this is not, hasn't been an easy one for me. It's just, um, it's interesting, but it's taken a lot of time. And I guess I want you all to know and understand that I've talked a little bit about there's mistakes in on the gravestones, there's mistakes in census reports. You're going to find them. However, I'm not saying my work is perfect, and if you find something, one of the reasons I'm doing this is to, hopefully I'll be contacting people who be working on the same families, and we can talk about it, have their stories that goes with it, and put it together. So I am, I wanted to first off, a few videos back, there was a birth certificate, and the name was Herbert Alexander. And I'd never heard of a Herbert in ours at all. But I put it in and I mentioned it, and the phone rang. It was my sister asking me, "Who's Herbert?" Well, so I did some more digging, and whoever filled out the birth certificate had actually put Herbert's name in there. It was supposed to be Leonard M. And I was able to match it up and make for sure. And I think it looked like maybe it was somebody else caught it and they uh, drew a line, but they didn't say who the right person was. So that was one thing I always kind of like to keep up on any of those things that I feel are hanging out there that you might be of interest. So who I want to talk to today is if you remember back, we're still in the Allnut family. There was Aunt Alice, and she was the one that uh, her husband died. Her son was killed in World War II. Her daughter was feeble-minded and was institutionalized just about, well, her whole entire life. And so Alice, actually, after they were all taken care of, she decided to go back to her home area in Montana where her mom and dad both had moved and they had immigrated directly from Ireland right into Montana. And so some of the interesting information I came across, um, I started to look at Ireland records, and some of them are, they're not the same as the ones that we usually do. As what, we get used to the United States, Canadian, Quebec ones are really hard to read. Um, but Ireland's were fairly good, and I'm excited to start working in that area, in the future. Uh, so basically, Alice's maiden name was Ryan, and then her mother's maiden name was Martin. So it's kind of today, what I'll be explaining to you is kind of like a little bit of both of those areas where you'll see Martin and then you'll see Ryan. Ryan is the surname of Jeremiah, who was her dad. So I've driven up there and it is beautiful. It's just big fields of green grass and lots of mines and mountainous areas also. It's not just all, but there was something very appealing to that when it was almost like I could see an advertisement that maybe somebody here sent to Ireland, or maybe it was just word of mouth. I mean, storytelling was such a big thing back then. But this is what I found. Beautiful fields of grass for growing sheep and cattle. And Ryan and his family, when they came over, they were doing both. They were doing sheep and cattle. Silver mines populating the mountains, seeking men to work. That was a big thing. They were looking for workers to come and immigrate. Irish families willing to immigrate. It was said this area had the largest, richest, rowdiest silver mines on the frontier, and the Irish Catholics were in control. So you get kind of an idea of, um, the lifestyle that they probably had and how they lived their life. And it had to have been tough. I don't know exactly. I haven't figured out what the climate was when they were in Ireland. So if that was a big shock, I think it was a big uh, shock that I have noticed in other records where there'll be a fence along the road, and when it snows, the snow goes up to the top of the fence, and and people can't go anywhere. And so I think it's just a different climate that we're not even used to, and I don't think I want to get used to it. I prefer palm trees, but so I thought it was interesting how I could just see this as, being put on a post or some kind of signage saying that. But when I was looking into Jeremiah, and I actually looked in some of the Ireland records, and there was records about men being incarcerated in jail. Now, I don't know for sure. I know, I'm learning more and more about the legal system in regard to, what level of crime you have to do to get, do you go to jail? Do you go to prison? A lot of that. But he was actually there for assault. Now, I think he was 19 at the time, and he was in jail for that. But then when I went up and down, I started looking at all the records. There were guys in jail that had thrown snowballs. There was guys in jail for using profound language, and of course the big one, drunkenness. So these rowdy Irish that this DNA is flowing through us is probably part of what we can explain to when we get a little wild. But so I bet it looked good to him to have an option like that, to be able to he wouldn't have been able to have this life that he got when he went to Montana. He ended up with a valley and acres of land, and he was a very well known and highly regarded in a lot of ways by the I could tell by the obituary that was written that he was a pillar of the community. Now I don't know, if I compared him to some other ancestors that I have talked about before. There's the ones that, you know, build churches and schools, and are a little bit different, but coming from what the Irish were dealing with in those years, I think this was a really good option for them. Now they had 6 kids, and I haven't been able to finish all of them. That's another thing that I kind of wanted to share a little bit. I'm going through a kind of an adjustment about um, when I get going on the genealogy, I don't want to quit. But then, I'm not trying to do everybody's genealogy for them. I think my goal is to find the people that are interested in some of the same names and some things, so there would be this other than my sister, she always, and my brother too, they will kind of remind me or question me on different things, and so I go back and um, check all the records again. But when I say people make errors, it includes me, and I won't be offended at all, if somebody contacts me and sends me information that says, "Wait a minute, I think you're going down the wrong rabbit hole." I'll be fine with it. In fact, it would be wonderful if I can find anything on my trees that I can actually correct. So again, it's that communication I'm looking for, but I find these stories, and some of them are zingers, and I want to be able to pass that on and give you an idea of the places that the people lived, and how they got to where they got to, and how they fit into their community. Now that area was really fascinating also when I was up there, because there's all these silver mines and going on, and then there was uh, just the farmers. There was lots of farmers and raising sheep and raising cattle, and so there was a lot of that. But there wasn't as much.